Welcome to the Spin Wiz Comic Show.
Whoa.
From Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us for exclusive interviews with the publishers bringing you the newest titles in indie comics, webcomics, movies, and more.
No way.
And now, here's your host, Jeff Palumbo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Spin Wiz Comic Show. We have a great show for you tonight. It's Wednesday. If you guys are live, thank you for being here. If you're on YouTube, also thank you for being here. We do have a live show twice a week. At least we try to have at least twice a week. But tonight I have a very special guest, and it seems like we've had a string of Source Point Press people on lately, which is fine. You know, we try to make fun of Frank Gogol when he's here. We pick on Travis. I didn't, but everybody else in the chat did last week. Greg Wright was on earlier in the week, and everybody bombarded him. So I can't wait to see what happens to this fine gentleman we have on tonight. You might know him as the creator of Broken Gargoyles that is coming out now, which we're going to talk about a little bit. He also has Salvagers, Ogres, Shelter Division, part of Drexler. I mean, the man is on absolute fire. And somehow he made time for my little show. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody for being here. But you didn't come to talk to me. I came to talk to him, and you came to just kind of hang out. Feel free to ask questions. It's all about interactivity. Everybody that's already coming in, thank you so much. Without further ado, let me bring the man of the hour in. Bob Salley, you are on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Heck yeah, man. Thanks for
I've been
being
loving
here.
watching you. I was watching you with all the guys that you just mentioned, and you guys are having a lot of fun. And it was fun watching too. And seeing Travis in his murder bedroom.
He
with the
really
lights
did.
off,
I was a little worried for him that Laura had put him in there, and she's like, "No, you take audio or you take interviews from the murder room."
But that's we found out later that that's actually where the air conditioning was. So he was in the coolest room in the house.
Yeah. So you already have a fan base here, man. Derek Sterling's here. Obviously, he's a creator. Josh Sobek's here. Justin Birch in the house. Welcome, everybody. Great to see everybody. Bob Salley here. Obviously, Bob Salley, for everybody that doesn't know, as I mentioned briefly, creator of amazing content. The dude has been on fire.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Like, just awesome stuff. So just for a background, Bob and I probably met about, I'd say 2.5 years ago, because it was before Spin was launched.
It might have been before I was even with Source Point Press, or if it was just when I started with Source Point Press, because everything that you were talking about doing was like super, very interesting, and it was something that I think that obviously it's working. So it was something that had merit to it, but it was like I knew me. I'm like I think I was with Source Point Press at the time, so it was more like you'll need to talk to Travis.
That's exactly the conversation we had, actually.
Yeah, he's the man. So I got you in touch with him, and it's funny because when you bring people to Travis, sometimes you're just like, I think this is a good idea. And you're bringing it to Travis and you're like, is he going to turn around and be like, why did you bring me this guy?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, no, you guys, they're doing good stuff.
Yeah.
And shout out to Dirk Manning.
Yeah.
This shirt is a championship shirt.
Oh, see, look at that. I mean, that's a big shout out for Derek right there. And I actually haven't met Derek yet personally.
Dirk Manning. He's the man. He's he's somebody you definitely got to get on the show.
I'm ready.
He likes to talk.
Anytime. I say bring it. And then Casey Pierce in here, and I mentioned briefly, be careful what you say about her because she's on the show in a couple weeks.
Oh,
so whatever you might throw out, she might bombard you with it in a couple weeks.
She's awesome. She's listening right now. I miss her. She's like the con mom. I eat all of her beef jerky behind the table, but she's just a lot of fun. And just like everybody at Source Point Press, I miss the cons. I think when the cons stopped, it was kind of like a nice break. But like I know Travis was touching upon it too. It's like now you're like, it'd be nice to just be away for the weekend in some strange city, with everybody and just, hanging out at the table and going out to dinner afterwards. So yeah, it's I miss it, but Casey's awesome. She'll talk your ear off.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about, I assume we're talking about Nora with her,
Yep.
but she has a couple titles that we can talk about. But again, I'm going to make sure that she has my 100% attention in the next couple of weeks. And again, if you're watching and you're a creator and you're on SpinWiz because you're through SourcePoint Press or any of our partners, just contact me and we'll get you on the show. It's really that easy. So back to our original statement, Bob and I met about 2.5 years ago. Went over to Travis. Travis and I brought on. But the reason I wanted to work with Bob, at least in this aspect, is because I loved your content so much. I backed Salvagers when it first came out. I was one of your Kickstarter backers. And I just thought it was great, super talented. And honestly, I think you have grown and you're just busting through the ceiling as if you're like, yeah, I'm not scared of anything. I'm good. Like, this is fine. So let's talk quickly about Broken Gargoyles first, because that's really what's out now. For those of you that do want a lot of stuff, from Bob after this, let me hook you up with some links now. If you're watching on YouTube, don't sweat it. The links are in below. They're just look below. There's a whole description part if you don't know. So there's a subscribe button, there's a like, and there's Bob's stuff. And the description is a very short description because TLDR, and I want you to actually use it. So let me drop some links in here. Pat, what's up? How are you? Welcome.
What's going on, Pat?
So there's a link for all of Bob's stuff. Don't go looking at it now. Wait till after the show. We got hotness here. And then on SpinWiz, we have even more stuff, which you can actually read. A lot of it now. We are bringing Ogre and Ogres on probably by next week. So don't worry about that. But Salvagers is there, Shelter Division's there, a whole bunch of stuff. So while you're listening to us, you're welcome to check it out. But if you're on YouTube, obviously go check it out. And then at the end, if you want to support them, go buy the stuff. It's really that easy.
Thank you.
So
stay here and listen to us.
All right, let's talk about Broken Gargoyles. Give me the elevator pitch, and then where in God's name did you come up with this?
So it's actually like I've had this elevator pitch that wasn't really working, and I think it's awesome because I wasn't at the convention, so I didn't have to figure out an elevator pitch yet. Mm-hmm. But there was somebody I gave the first issue out to a bunch of people to review. And somebody said they were like, it's kind of like Saving Private Ryan and Metal Gear Solid. So I kind of like that, but it's basically it's post World War I diesel punk story about some vets that came home mutilated, and how they are received from from their country that they fought for, and one is on a path for redemption and the other one's on a path for revenge, and the two of them are kind of on a collision course toward each other. I'm still working on the elevator pitch. It's a working. I was never good with the elevator pitches. Actually, with Salvagers, where it was it was, I haven't been to convention so long, I can't remember what the elevator pitch was. It's Star Wars meets Sanford and Son. That was something that David Hayes came up with. So I usually get my elevator pitches, when I'm at a con and somebody's like, you are just bombing right now. You can't sell anything. And they'll be like, look, just say this. And, and I'm like, all right. So I steal or I adopt or I take whatever anybody tells me. Like they say this. And I'm like, all right. And it's been working. So nobody's actually read it yet and has given me a good elevator pitch for it, but it's a diesel punk post World War I story. And it came about when I was actually doing a story with David Hayes, and there was a character that I wanted to put in the book. And when I did some research, I went down this whole rabbit hole of this term broken gargoyle, which these facially mutilated vets that came home from World War I gave themselves. And when the further and further I went on into reading all about it, these vets came home, and because of the time and because of their injuries, people didn't really want to see them, so they lost their jobs, they lost their families. A lot of them turned to alcoholism, and a lot of them committed suicide. And you can imagine, as I was reading it, you can imagine what it would be like to look in the mirror and not be able to see yourself, or not be able to walk down the street and convey happiness or sadness, or like if you see somebody, like it's kind of going on right now, like where you're wearing a mask and somebody holds the door open for you and you want to smile at them and you realize like they can't see me smiling. But imagine that like on a grander scale. So it just started going on, and like I started coming up with these characters, and then it was actually Travis talking to him about the story, and he was like, why don't, have you thought about doing diesel punk with it? And then that got me into researching like what, steampunk, diesel punk, there's ion punk. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, cyberpunk.
And and then cyberpunk. And all of them kind of fall into timelines. So, steampunk is like the late 1800s. Diesel punk is the early 1900s. And so, of course, I was like, well, actually, that fits for World War I. And then I was, working on the story, and Travis was like, have you ever read East of Eden or Grapes of Wrath? And I'd read Grapes of Wrath. So I reread it. And as I was reading it and like researching diesel punk, I kind of started feeling, I was like, Grapes of Wrath has got some diesel punk, almost post-apocalyptic, like it, elements of it. And then as does East of Eden. So that kind of like gave me a good jumping off point for the mood that I wanted to set with Broken Gargoyles. So it's been an adventure, and it's been one of these, working with Stan Yak as the artist, and Robert Nugent is the colorist, and Justin Birch, if you're listening, thank you so much for that rush job. He is the letterer, and Drina Joe is is my editor. And it's been they're a great team. Stan and I love working with them, and it's amazing just the level of like Stan and I working together and talking over Facebook Messenger. And he's Russian, and I'm American, and and if you looked at the communication that we had going back and forth with each other, you'd think that we lived next door to each other. So one of the beautiful things about making comic books is it's just the world is so small right now, and you can throughout my career, all the books that I've worked on, I feel like that I've had at least like one or two of the creative team were in another country, and it's great because you talk to them, or at least I do. Like I don't just, here's the script, give me pages. Like I like to communicate with them. I like to see how they're doing. If you're not getting pages, especially with the coronavirus, you care about them, and you're like, is everything okay? What's going on? So you start to really understand different cultures, even like just through messaging a little bit. And Stan was great because there's elements of Russians in Broken Gargoyles, and he and I talked, like we would talk for hours, and he would share different historical things with me about the Russian history, and that were like kind of things that you didn't learn in college, or like they're not in textbooks. So it was great, and then he would draw a panel, and he'd be like, what if we put this in here because it represents this and that, and I'm like, do it, so it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Did you get to pick your team on this?
I did. Well, Stan, he works with Robert Nugent a lot, so he likes working with Robert, and I liked finding my artist, and I've always said to my artist, I'm like, if you work with a colorist, and if you've worked with a colorist over time, or if you have a letterer, I don't want to get somebody because I like that person. I'd rather use somebody that you've worked with and bring them on, because then you already have a rapport with them. It's one less step that I have to take. So, a lot of times where Robert will send, the coloring, and I'm kind of like, I'm just the writer here, like let Stan comment on it. And it kind of takes, the onus, it puts the onus on the artist. So I do like it when they get to pick their own team, but Justin is somebody I just, when I started working with when I joined Source Point Press, and he's a lot of fun. And, as much as he probably can't stand me right now, he basically had 4 hours to do a job, and I apologize profusely, but it's the same time. It's like, you have guys that you can banter with like that, and you can be in the trenches with, and things could be bad, and like there could be times where you're getting heated, but at the end of the day, it's like we work together. So when you have that with somebody, I think you tend to gravitate toward it with all your projects. You're like, I don't want to go out and search for a new letterer, because I know working with this letter, like I know what I'm going to get, and I don't have to worry about anything, and there's no surprises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually extremely worried about relaunching because Chimera, my title, is almost 8 years old now.
Hi, Caitlin. Congratulations on your Kickstarter.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, that's all good. That's why we're here. So I'm worried because I had an amazing team, and Bong and Marlon knew how to work together, so I didn't have to worry about it, and they were solid. So now I have to go back and find a brand new team for issue 2. And
it's the worst.
It is worrying me big time.
Yeah, no, and I've gone through that. I've gone through that many times. When I did Salvagers, we did volume 1 with George Acevedo. He's the only artist that I worked with, and when he got a promotion at work, and when he quit, I was amazed because I'm like, this is, it wasn't like blowing up or anything, but I'm like, going from like doing 4 issues, like we have a bit of a following, and your artwork, his artwork, vastly improved through 4 issues, and he got a promotion at work, and he was like, I just can't do it anymore. And I was like, okay, but I left it because I had, the dumbest thing you can do, by the way, if you're listening and you want to do comics, take a note right now. If you're doing your first comic, don't do a 12-issue story arc, because it's the dumbest thing you can do. So I'm sitting there like, all right, I just did 4 issues and I got 8 more to do, and I just lost my artist. And it took me 10 years to find him. So, it was tough. And then I had to go out and look for somebody that, I always said, I was like, if Stan had like a Jim Lee type style, I couldn't go out and find somebody who had a Mike Mignola style. Like I had to find somebody who was comparable, even though it wasn't going to be the same. So, it's been tough. That happened with me with Shelter Division, and, hopefully it stops happening.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Freddie Packard in the house.
Hey, Freddie.
Another Source Point Press guy. Skylin also coming back to the site for a little POD, hopefully in the future. Where did Bob get his good looks? I mean, honest question from Freddie. Although let's post on the thing. Freddie, not a bad looking dude himself. You know what I mean?
Freddie, yeah. Freddie's got that. He's got that underwear model type really look to himself. Yes, we all love Freddie.
I've only seen him clothed, which is fine, but I can imagine that he does that kind of look.
He's got that award-winning smile.
He really does, and a smart dude too. So where do you get?
Let's not get crazy here. I would probably have to say it's from my mother.
See, I mean, this is
sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad. My bad. This is where you get the hard questions too. Spinner's Comic Show. These are the intense questions that really make you think. So a question more about comics. What was your first title that you ever wrote?
Salvagers.
So you came out on a hot streak.
Yeah, comic books were very new to me when I did it, but I've written my whole life, since I was a little kid, trying to do my own comic books. I went to college for writing. I had written prose. So I had written, I got into a little bit of a writer's block, and, my professor always said, if you ever hit writer's block, just write. And, I've told the story many times, and I was sitting at this bar, and they had this, it was kind of like a hipster bar, and they had this little tube TV up in there, and it always had the sound off, and they would play classics. So there was times we'd go in there, and it was almost like it was just like this thing playing, and you'd look up at times and be like, oh, there's Wizard of Oz, or oh, there's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it was just like things like that while you're partying at night at a bar drinking. And one night I was there, and they had Star Wars on, and the Death Star blows up at the end, and I just thought, I was like, what if there was a crew that went out and cleaned that stuff up? There's probably a lot of valuable stuff in that. Mm-hmm. And the process that I got myself out of writer's block was just writing down different. So I was like, all right, I have to have a crew. There's a job to do, and there's a ship to do it on, and you have to have a pilot, you have to have a captain, you have to have a maintenance man, you have to have a tech guy. And at the time I was working at a job, and I was working with people, and you're just like, all right. And I remember the tech service guy, every time I'd have a question about something, he'd be like, come and he'd smack some things on my computer and he'd just look at me like, duh, like it's so easy. So I was like, and that became Brigby. Like Brigby was the little alien guy that was like, he knew how to do everything. And then he knew basically rocket science. And if somebody didn't know how to do it, he was like, what are you, stupid? Like, it's rocket science. So that's how that kind of took form. And I can't even honestly tell you anymore, like why I decided to do it as a comic book. I probably the boring answer is probably because I've always wanted to do comic books and I always liked comics. So I was like, you know what? How hard can it be? I've written prose. Like, how hard can writing comics be? And I went to Dark Horse Comics submission, like on their website, and they even had like a template. They were like, "This is how we want our scripts written." So I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to submit this to Dark Horse Comics and be famous. So I might as well do it in their template." And that's it. Like, I just started writing it, and it just. As much as I would like to say when I started doing it, it didn't seem that hard. Looking back now, it was really hard. And looking back at writing the comics and realizing, like, when somebody's reading your first issue and they're like, wow, there's zero pacing in this. Like, Bob Salley doesn't know a thing about pacing. Things like that, or where you start learning how to do dialogue where you're like, all right, all my characters sound exactly the same. So you have to give them different voices. But yeah, it was hard. But I did it because I was very determined to do it. I had a child on the way and, I just told George, I'm like, let's just get this done so I can say that I did it and move on with the rest of my life. So my whole plan was just to do one comic book, to be able to hold it. And when I'm 70 years old, I could show my grandkids, like, your grandpappy did a comic book. And now here I am doing it every night.
Yeah. I think that plan backfired on you, Bob.
But you know what? I do appreciate it because, like, looking at the people that are joining in here right now and interacting with, people like you, and even though we're not at conventions, it seems like, the family in the industry keeps growing and we're still together. Like, it's not like people, just because there's not conventions, people are like, well, I'm done. People are still out there figuring out a way. So, and everybody's super supportive. If anybody's out there right now from Michigan, you are the mecca of the creator world. You guys are so interlocked and, like, just so supportive. And I can't even, like, thank you enough for letting me into your world. But the Michigan people are just amazing.
That's awesome.
They're still out there. They're still out there doing it. Amen to that. Kaylin Smith.
So Freddie's coming back saying, you're all too kind. Thank you, Bob, for getting me into comics. And I attribute a lot of my success. He stresses success to Bob. He's a Class A creator and champion of the medium. I bring on Shelter Division.
Thank you so much. I'm blushing over here. I don't want to take credit for any of Freddie's accolades because he's just got there's no ceiling on him right now. So
no, that boy hustles. Let me tell you that right now.
He does.
He hustles. His whole team hustles for sure. So let's talk about your success a little bit, and then we, depending on how things go, we'll wrap it up. But with success comes a lot of people who read your books, and then you obviously have expanded that pool base and the follower base who are really tight with your content. But along with that, what kind of stress comes from that? And meaning that now you have to always put out a blockbuster. You always have to, maybe once, if not even it out, do something different, throw in a hook, do something a little bit better. Like, what kind of stress comes with success? Because failure is easy. Failure, you fail, you're like, I'm done, that's it. But success is difficult. Consistent.
Yeah, it's so Travis, when I did Ogre, I turned that in. Like, Travis gave me the best compliment ever, saying, like, how great it was. But then at the same time, in the same breath, he was like, you're gonna be in trouble now because you went from here to here, and now your next book, your next book has to be better than that. And but I feel like, my upbringing, the work ethic that I've been taught, and just loving the medium that I'm doing, and loving comics and having respect for it, and having respect and appreciation to the people that are reading my books. Whenever I'm writing a new book, I feel like they deserve something new, and they deserve something better than I did the last time. Mm-hmm. So the nerve-wracking thing, or the pressure of it, is looking at what you did previous and, saying I have to do better than that. The way I do that, I think, is, I don't know if it's healthy or not, but it's going through your last book and nitpicking over every little thing that you did wrong and trying to improve from that. So then, like the next book that you do is, you're gonna say, like, that one thing that I did that didn't work in that book, I'm gonna make sure I don't do that in this book, because I don't ever want to make the same mistake twice.
Yep.
So yeah, there is that level of pressure to say, like, you never want, it's funny because I always thought with Kickstarters, I did a lot of Kickstarters. That's how I funded, and that's how I produced Salvagers, was through Kickstarter. Even today, like the books that I do for Salvagers, I do through Kickstarter, because that's where the following started, and I want them to continuously be able to get that. And I always thought that each campaign that I write, I don't want to see the backers go down. I don't care about the money. Because as I did the Kickstarters, I made the rewards less. So I think at first it was like a $15 comic, and I charged $5 for the shipping. And, like, my mom and Aunt Edna and Uncle Joe, like, they're all like dumping money into it, because they're like, oh, Bob's doing a thing. But then, like, the next ones, like, it was like, I don't want it to be so much. And you start learning more. People are like, if you're going to do this, like $15 a comic, like, no, it's horseshit. So it was like, I don't care if, like, the last one I did $10,000 and the next one I did $8,000, but if the backers went up, that's what was important to me. If I saw the backers going down, then I thought, like, all right, I'm losing the audience, and I'm not doing my job, whether it's in the writing or the promotion of my work. So, right now the pressure also is that I'm not self-publishing. I take an idea and I take a concept, and, the Travis, okays it or he doesn't okay it. And if he okays it, then we're like, okay, I got the team together, I got the script, I got an editor, we're going to move forward with it. And then he's like, okay, when do you want, like, when is it going to be available for our diamond release schedule? So then we work that out. And then it's like, now we have to get this done, and it has to be done, and it has to be turned in at a certain date. So you basically, like, you have a production schedule that you have to follow, and you're like, all right, and you got to make sure, like, all right, the art needs to be to the colorist at this time, and the colorist needs to send it to the letter. Because now it's not something where it's like, oh, well, if I'm a month late, I'll just tell the Kickstarter backers I'm a month late. But with diamond release, like, there's more involved in that, especially with the publisher. They don't just send your book to print. They send all of their books that are going out to print. So, you don't want to be the person that's holding it up. So you want to make sure that, you got everything rolling, and, you're getting your part of the job done.
Yeah, it can be a little stressful, a little quick. And I think a lot of people miss or don't understand, unless you are a creator, the operational side of the house. And that's a whole nother piece. And honestly, I think that Josh and Travis are great at a lot of that, and lock that whole thing down, which I'm sure helps you. So, and with that, you brought up, which will be our last topic here, you brought up a lot of support, and Dirk brought it up too. A high tide raises all boats. We all got to support each other. And I think in the indie community, they really do. And as we spoke about right before we got on, my whole job, and the reason that this company exists, is to try to take that 25% of the industry, because Marvel and DC own about 75, is not to compete against them, but take it and grow it.
Right.
Screw those other guys. That's great that they do what they do. They have a 70-year, head start. And there's so many great content creators like yourself, like everybody from SourcePoint, and there's a whole bunch of others as well, that as people start kind of gravitating towards, hey, let's see what else is out there. And for as much as COVID sucks, we have seen readership go up as well, because people are inside, they're looking for other things to do. and this is the time where indie, and I would like to come up with another term other than indie, because it's not a good term anymore. Indie used to be the fact that, hey, we're not Marvel and DC, we're the 5 other guys, and now there's like 400 or 500 different content creators.
Yeah, I think I like creator owned more.
I like creator owned as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. When people say like indie, it's almost got the stigma to it where it's like, not professional.
Right. And that's not the case. In fact,
no.
I like a lot of what I would call creator-owned content better, because you're not inside that box. And I think you do a great job of not staying inside the box, but doing it enough where people, when you start reading it, just like, again, Salvagers, they have read stories with a group before. So they kind of got that a group would come together. But the way that you did it, it gave everybody their own background. It was a different feel to it, but they understood. So it was easy to gravitate towards. And I think with Broken Gargoyle, I think that the feels are there. Hashtag the feels.
Yeah.
And then I think that is a different setup that people really don't have access to right now. And I think that is why, in my opinion, that is one of the reasons why I think Broken Gargoyles will be one of your biggest hits.
Knock on wood.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and again, like it's a story that I think the whole process of it became really special to me, which they all do. Like doing Ogre. I met Sean at a Philadelphia Comic-Con, and he and I were talking, and we're like, let's do a book together. And we didn't really know what to do, and he was working on something, I was working on something, and then finally, we came up with something that would work for us. And then the process of working with Sean Daly on Ogre was just amazing. And the fact that, and I think it was a part of, where in my career where I'm like, well, this is amazing for me, but I don't know if it's amazing for him. And then when we met and we were having drinks, like after Ogre was done and we were in Toronto, he was like, well, when are you going to finish the script for the next one? And I was just like, oh, I didn't know you wanted to do another one. He's like, yeah, let's do another one. So that meant a lot to me that I worked with somebody like Sean, and they want to work with you again. So it's been great. And it's, and that, again, like we talked about, finding people, a creative team that it's not just a business. It's not just like, hey, I'm clocking in here. You're actually enjoy working with them. On Shelter Division, Ken Perry, who I'm sure isn't watching right now because he's been at the gym all day doing leg day. And I know that because he and I talk all day, and he sent me a video, which I will post in the comments so everybody else can see Ken Perry working out at the gym, sending me videos. Yeah,
don't skip leg day.
Exactly. So if you are watching, Ken, I'm going to show everybody that video you sent me. But it's just those are the things where you start realizing I got to a point where my weekends were spent at conventions, and it was great because I felt like that's where my friends are. That's where the people that I spend the most time with are. And, I think, if you're traveling a lot, or maybe it's as you get older, you tend to gravitate toward people who make you better, or that, uplift you. And that's what I think the Source Point Press community is just, it's been years of people who can be behind a table for 3 days or 4 days straight, and then go to a hotel room and be 5 guys to a bed and wake up the next morning and still all get along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hard to do.
It's very hard to do. If you've ever seen some of the people at Source Point Press. I have. I've met most of them now. And I don't know what bed you were laying in. But I'm not saying that I'm any better.
Hey.
I'm up there with all of them. We're disgusting.
I don't judge.
Well, we don't have any. There's usually no girls in there. It's just
also
it's a mess.
Poor Casey.
She's been in some of those rooms.
Poor Casey.
Yeah, I actually think that Travis has made her sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's not allowed to tell all the disgusting things that us men do and all the noises that come out of us.
Yeah, Casey, if you're still watching, let's bring that up during your interview. I think that'll be great. So, well, listen, we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate you being here. It's the first time we have spoken in person, live. We've done a ton of chatting. Let's continue that. Let me know how I can help. Let me know how I can hook you up. Hang on just a minute so I can say goodbye to you right after I sign off. And
All right.
I'll be right back. So hang with me just 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Salley. Source
Thanks
Point
for having me on. Thanks for listening.
Anytime. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the infamous Bob Salley. He is the man. He's great at what he does, and what a nice dude, too. I mean, those are really the people you want to support. So, the links are already in the chat. If you're watching YouTube, they're down below. You can read some of his stuff already that's on SpinWiz. We'll have a whole bunch more actually coming up. A lot of his number ones and number twos will probably be free to read starting next week. So that'll be great. And if you like it, buy it. And then buy the rest of his stuff. Do Kickstarters, everything. That's what indie comics is all about, is really taking really great people and helping to elevate them and show them that love. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with all the content that he and the rest of Source Point Press really pulls up, and a lot of the other indie guys that we have on the site too. So thank you again to Bob Salley. Thank you everybody for coming in. We'll be back on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. At least I'm trying to fill that gap on Sunday because there's a cancellation, so we'll see. And if not, you'll be all right without me. I know you're used to watching me now, and I make your night. But in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Enjoy yourself. And if I don't talk to you, have a wonderful weekend, because I probably won't. And I'll see you Sunday. Have a great one. Talk to y'all soon. Later.